Hello everyone out there on the internet, I am Jack. Hello everyone out there on the internet, I am Jack of all trades. Sorry for the poor lighting setup. I've been awake for 25 consecutive hours now. Unus Annus ended this morning. I stayed up for the full 12-hour stream as a result. I've been awake for a while, but I'm getting this video sent out to you guys as soon as I can. This is part 2 of an ongoing series recapping all of the Attack on Titan anime in time before the final season begins. This time looking at episodes 14 to 25. Link to the previous part will be on screen, and without any further ado, let's go! Here we meet Niall, head of the military police, and Premier Darius Zachary, head of the entire military, garrison, MPs, scouts, and logically the training corps, but that's never confirmed. After a cute little scene between commanders Pixis and Erwin, Eren finally meets the scouting legion commanders Hanji and Mike. We get a good one-sided conversation with Hanji, while Mike gives Eren a good whiff. But before Eren can say anything, he is hurried into the packed courtroom. Representatives of the garrison, scouts, MPs are all present, as well as Armin, Mikasa, many citizens and political figures. Zachary will decide who gets custody over Eren. The military police, who see him as a threat and intend to study and then execute him, or the scouts who wish to use him to aid in the recovery of Wall Maria. All the respective sides have to do is convince him one way or the other. As the discussion begins, a familiar face speaks up. That crazy wall-worshipping guy from the first episode now stands in a position of power in the court. Pastor Nick, proclaiming Eren to be an aberration and to be killed at once. As trust is now sealed, Erwin proposes a plan to scout out the route from Trust's eastern district down to Shigashina before later embarking on an expedition to seal the wall. Some citizens just suggest they seal up the walls now, which Nick refuses. How dare they meddle with the walls? A gift from God. It's a whole mess. Erwin acknowledges the risk that Eren may lose control like he did when he attacked Mikasa, an event Eren is shocked to learn of given he doesn't seem to remember it. Niall further brings up the record of Mikasa and Erwin, age 9, killing 3 grown men, albeit in self-defense, and questions their basic humanity. Suspicion is then cast upon Mikasa, and Eren gets riled up, shouting that the others can stay here and stew in their own cowardice. Just make him a scout and send him out to fight back. A faint cloud of steam swirling around him. Levi steps forward and beats Eren, sending a tooth flying. Niall tells him to get back, Eren could be dangerous. But Levi takes this opportunity to show why he's the most qualified to look after Eren, while in comparison, most of the military police have never even seen a Titan. Zachary places Eren under the scouts, so long as Levi supervises him throughout the recon mission to evaluate whether he can control his ability or not. Later on, Hanji helps clean Eren up, and Erwin apologises for letting it happen, but thanks him for being a good sport as this was all part of his plan, nonetheless shaking his hand and looking forward to working with him. Hanji reveals that they picked up Eren's missing tooth, but upon examination of his mouth, all parties are surprised to see that a new one has grown back in its place already. Eren and our new characters head to the old Scout Regiment HQ north of Trost. We are introduced to Oro Bozard, and with that introduction, we have now met all members of Levi Squad. Don't worry, Eren's inner monologue catches us up on all their names and stats. Disgraced by how disheveled the old base has become, Levi sets the team to work, cleaning it up before they can begin training. We get a bunch of good scenes throughout the episode of the squad members interacting. Elsewhere, Mike and Erwin discuss the plan for the reconnaissance mission, but Mike is acutely aware that Erwin is keeping something from him. Erwin smiles, acknowledging that his friend has always been an observant one, promising to fill him in when the time is right. That night, Levi Squad sits around eating dinner, Eld asking how Eren's Titan transformation thing works. But Eren doesn't know, all he knows is that he can trigger it by inflicting self-harm. Hanji enters to ask if they can borrow Eren for some experiments tomorrow on the 2 captured Titans. But just as Eren starts asking questions, the rest of Levi Squad quickly leave, not wanting to hear Hanji rant and rave about Titans, something they haven't likely been subjected to many times over. Hanji gives a lot of exposition explaining their findings to Eren. They've named the 2 captured Titans Sonny and Bean after the 16th century Scottish clansmen and cannibal. We learn that the Titans seem to gain energy from the sun somehow, moving during the day and ceasing movement during the night. As such, they erected tents over Sonny and Bean, though the amount of time it took for them to become quote-unquote tired seemed varied. Sonny took 1 hour, while Bean took over 3. Titans do possess vocal organs, but they seemingly can't speak. They need not eat or drink to survive, seemingly only needing sunlight. But if they were to risk seeing what a prolonged lack of sunlight would do to the Titans, they'd risk losing 2 specimens. Cutting to screaming in tears as Hanji tested Sonny and Bean's pain responses in the hopes of finding another weak spot other than the nape, stabbing them with a massive metal rod. Bean convulsed and roared, but Sonny barely reacted. Eren asks how Hanji can be so light-hearted talking about Titans, and Hanji responds with a bit of their own backstory, originally fighting them out of hate until one day, kicking a severed Titan head and realizing how light it was. From a physics standpoint, it should be impossible for creatures of that size to move as they do up on two legs, but Hanji realized back then it's because they're way lighter than they ought to be. As such, after humanity has spent over a century trying to combat them offensively, Hanji is trying to find a different angle and learn more about the enemy. Eren is spared from the further 12 hours of Hanji's theories, something I'd be all too happy to hear, as Moblet, sort of Hanji's right-hand man, burst through the door shouting that both the captured Titans have been killed. Levi Squad and Hanji arrive in Trost just in time to see their skeletons evaporating, Hanji crying out and falling to their knees. They were killed just before dawn by someone with ODM gear, thus likely a soldier. Gunther hypothesizing that there may even have been multiple culprits. Erwin appears behind Eren, bending down so only he can hear, asking him what he thinks the enemy is, but upon seeing Eren's confused reaction, apologizes and acknowledging it to be a strange question, and leaves. Later we see the remaining 104th cadets interviewed and their ODM gear inspected by the military police in search of the culprit. Connie and Armin discuss how the attack may have been motivated by revenge on the Titans, but the attackers' actions have set humanity back, losing two valuable sources of information. Connie was seriously considering joining the Scouts after Eren's speech, but after everything he saw at the Battle of Trost, now he's not sure. He glances at Jean's tightly clenched fist, and we flash back to the night after they gathered up all the dead bodies and burnt them. Connie crouched on the ground, crying, clutching his head, the others watching in a mournful, stunned silence. Jean kneels down, lifting up a burnt bone from the ground. In his head, apologising to Marco that he's not even sure which bones are his anymore. Thanks to Eren's speech, and Jean now knows he has to fight. But he can't be the suicidal maniac Eren is, so willing to risk it all. Just then, Jean sees a vision of Marco standing by his side, repeating what he told him back at the Trust HQ. Jean isn't a good leader because he's strong, but because he knows what it's like to be weak. Jean clenches his fist and gets to his feet, addressing his fellow cadets, eyes wide like he can't quite believe what he's saying, grabbing at himself, trying to hold himself together, announces that he's going to join the Scouts, and starts to cry as we fade to present. Connie asks Annie if they still plan to join the military police, suggesting that he might do so as well. She asks if he'd be willing to die if someone told him to, if not, just to do what feels right for him. She asks the same to Armin, who tells her that if he understood why, he would, the two silently acknowledging his choice. Armin does admit, however, that this was always the plan anyway. Annie compliments his bravery, and Armin compliments her back in turn, which surprises her. Armin understanding that Annie seems apprehensive about all her friends joining the Scouts, and likely has her own reasons for joining the MPs instead. But Annie shoots down that idea, saying she's only doing it so she doesn't die. The remaining Southern 104th cadets assemble for the ceremony to choose their regiment. Erwin appeals to the cadets to join. As with Eren, they stand a chance to retake Maria. He even tells them about the basement in Shiashina holding some secret to the Titans, which surprises everyone. Armin wonders if revealing this information was a wise move, but trusts that Erwin must have some wider plan. Mike and Petra hold up a map for Erwin to explain. On the upcoming survey, they will leave from Kalaneth and head southwest to Shigashina, stating the previous route from Trost, having taken 4 years and the death of 60% of the Scout Legion, is now useless as they can't get through the gate. He continues to reinforce the risk that they'll be taking by joining, estimating that 30% of the cadets who join today will die in the upcoming expedition. In 4 years, most if not all will be dead. As the cadets leave, we get 3 great character moments here inside John, Connie and Sasha's heads as they fight with themselves whether to join the Scouts or the MPs. We see that a mere 18 choose to join the Scouts, including Jean, Armin, Miksa, Connie, Reiner, Bertolt, Sasha, Krista, and Ymir. I'm going to refer to them collectively as the 104th S for simplicity's sake going forward. The 104th S are shown around HQ by Section Commander Ness. He shows them stables and teaches them about Erwin's long-range scouting formation, with Gunther teaching Eren the same so that all the recruits are caught up to speed. Essentially, the Scouts travel in several small squads, moving all as one. Should a squad spot a Titan, they use their flares to inform the rest of the squads around them. Those squads then fire their flares, and the squads that see that fire their flares, spreading information and keeping everyone in contact, so when the commander receives word, he can change direction of the formation to best avoid the Titans, thus reducing casualties in combat as much as possible. As Levi's squad returns to HQ, Eren can finally catch up with his friends. Miksa's swearing revenge on Levi for hurting Eren, who tries to calm her down. Eren's glad to see everyone, but is disappointed to see that Jean, Annie and Marco all join the MPs. Jean walks over to Aaron and informs him of Marco's death, which it takes a minute for him to process. For a brief moment, he sees Marco in Scout's uniform, smiling alongside all his friends. And the parties catch each other up on what's been happening, asking Aaron about his ability, why he attacked Mikasa, asking him to prove that they can rely on him, that he's worth dying for. 1 month later, we see the Scouts primed to ride out from the Kalnef district, and the 57th scouting mission begins. Mike smells an approaching Titan and Hanji alerts the troops, 2 taken to the air to fight while the rest of the regiment advance. Oro talks down to Aaron and bites his tongue, Erwin giving the order for the Scouts to assume long-range scouting formation. And the camera flies through, giving us a reference to everyone's positions. We flash back to the explanation of the formation and immediately encounter one of its biggest flaws. Because the terrain isn't flat and barren, especially within Maria with houses and man-made structures alongside the natural ones, the outer squads can occasionally miss a Titan, resulting in the inner squads encountering one without warning. Sasha desperately rises to evade a freaky-looking Titan, scampering around on all fours, it's so fast. Her squad mates send up a flare and together they manage to lose it. Armin, alone aside from a spare horse, spots black signals and sends up his own, passing on the message. Just then, an abnormal being pursued by Commander Ness and Sis, another soldier, comes running in a straight line through the formation, seemingly not trying to eat anyone. Unlike the battle in Trost, where the Titans are surrounded by buildings which the soldiers can grapple off with their ODM gear, out with the city, the only thing the Scouts can grapple onto tends to be the Titan itself. Ness slices through the tendons at the back of the foot. Grounding the Titan, a Sis flies in to cut out the nape. They mount their horses to return to their spots in the formation, but spot another abnormal heading their way. They steady themselves to take it out, but before they can so much as turn their horses to intercept, it's overtaken them. It's sprinting. Sis grapples to the nape, but is swatted away like a fly. Armin sends up another black flare as this skinless abnormal Titan grabs Ness's line and slams him into the ground at speed. The abnormal changing direction to run directly towards Armin. He puts together that like Aaron, the armoured and the colossal, this one must have intelligence. It steps over him, the thud sending him to the ground. The Titan kneels down, reaching, but pulls back his hood. The two make eye contact for a few seconds before the Titan stands up and runs towards the center of formation. Reiner catches up, having been behind Armin in formation, gives him one of the spare horses, and the two pursue this female-looking Titan as yellow flares come up from the right flank, too injured to continue. Before the two boys can pass on the signal, Jean fires for them, having caught up as well. Armin fills them in that he believes the female Titan to have been responsible, having come from that direction, and that it may have intelligence, given how it defended its nape and seems to be killing rather than eating. Furthermore, Armin explains that it may be searching for Eren. Interestingly, the three discover that each of their copies of the formation placed Eren at a different location. Erwin didn't want anyone to know where Eren really was. Jean pushes for them to try and take down the Titan, or at least buy enough time for the rest of the Scouts. But he refuses to meet a disappointing end, dying like Marco. He knows what needs to be done now. Reiner commenting on Jean's character growth, the three boys hide their faces in advance. Jean tries to go for the back of the foot, but the female Titan changes direction and dodges. Swiping towards him, the gust of wind blowing his hood back, revealing his face. It bats at Armin's horse, sending Armin to the ground, and it looks down to see his face, covered in blood. Jean grits his teeth, grappling to the back, heading for the nape, but the Titan places its hand over the nape to defend it. About to swat him away with its free hand, Jean anticipating death. Then Armin shouts. And it freezes. Armin knows that she's looking for Eren, and so yells that they need to kill her to avenge him, as he died when she wiped out the right wing. This causes her to hesitate, Jean getting to safety as Reiner comes in to take out the nape. But he's grabbed by the Titan's hand. As she moves to squeeze him in a splatter of blood, he cuts himself free from the fingers, darting down to the ground, grabbing Armin and running to get to safety. The trio run on foot as it watches its hand heal. Reiner laughs as she gets up and runs away, but Armin realizes that she's heading for the center rank, where Eren most likely is. Jean has managed to call back one of the trio's horses, but that won't be enough to carry them off to safety, while Reiner continues to clean up Armin, bandaging up his head. The boys send up an emergency smoke signal as they start to discuss who should be left behind if they don't receive any help. Thankfully, Krista spots their signal. Having found Jean's horse, she brings it along with a spare. They thank her, and we have one of my favourite running jokes in the series. They ride to catch up with the formation. Levi's squad receives word that the right flank has been wiped out, Levi sending Petra to pass on the message to the next squad over. Eren initially worries about Armin, but calms himself. Armin was relatively close to the centre of formation. The Titans can't have gotten that close. As if on cue, they spot several black smoke signals getting closer, as the female Titan takes out the woefully underprepared Scouts, kicking, jumping, and playing with them as if they were toys as she clears her route to Eren with ease. The formation approach a massive forest, trees over 80 meters tall. Erwin leads on down a path through the center of the forest, instructing that only the center ranks are to follow him inside, having the rest of the soldiers take up positions around the perimeter of the forest. Everyone is confused by this order, but do as instructed. Armin realizes that this has all been according to Erwin's plan, likely intending to confront the female titan in this forest where they can better use their ODM gear to grapple onto. While Jean realizes they've all been placed at the perimeter, not to kill approaching titans, but rather as bait, so the titans won't advance any further in. Erwin looks around, concerned by his surroundings, but more so by the looks on his squad's faces as they have no clue what's going on. Black smoke from behind Levi's squad as they draw their blades for combat, the female titan smiling down at them as it crashes through trees overhead. Petra yells to Levi for orders as the rear squad is crushed and they start to panic. Levi remaining silent only to look over his shoulder calmly, telling his team to cover their ears as he raises a flare gun. Everyone bar Oro manages to cover at least one ear as Levi fires an acoustic round. Levi orders them to push on. Remember, their job is to protect Eren. But Eren wants to fight. What sort of titan could possibly beat Levi's squad? They argue back and forth, Eren wanting to engage, but the others telling him to trust in Levi. We flash back to some point in the prior month of training before the exposition. Levi presenting his idea of how to cut Eren from the nape without killing him, as they head out to start experimenting with Hanji. With Eren at the bottom of the well, everyone at a safe distance, he tries to transform. After nothing happens for a while, they come and look over the edge of the well to see Eren on his knees, blood everywhere, having torn the skin from his hands in places. He just couldn't transform no matter how hard he tried. Later, having tea, his hands having not healed yet, Eld and Gunther console him that it's okay to take it slow, with the great line that it just means he's more human than they thought. Eren drops his spoon, but when he reaches over to pick it up, there's a flash of lightning and steam and the others are sent flying. Eren panics, his arms stuck inside a partially formed titan. Just the ribs, the spine, and the skinless arm. Eren looks over his shoulder to see Levi protecting him from the rest of the squad, arms drawn, glaring at Eren. Hanji and Moblitz run back towards the explosion, Hanji cheering, jumping for joy, cheeks flushing as they sprint towards Eren in the partial titan. Pushing the bickering Levi squad aside, Hanji touches the massive arm, literally drooling, and is overjoyed to see how hot it feels without any skin. Eren pulls himself free to Hanji's dismay as it starts evaporating, but notices that the hand is clutching a spoon, undamaged or warped by the pressure. That night at HQ, Hanji hypothesizes that Eren needs a clear goal in order to transform, manifesting a titan to do so. Kill titans, lift a boulder, it fully transformed. But to block a cannonball or pick up the spoon, it only manifested enough of the titan to fulfill the task. Understanding Eren didn't deliberately break the rules to try and kill them or anything, Levi's squad bite down on their hands, apologizing to Eren for their actions. Flashback to present, Petra asking him that he trusts them as the female titan bears down upon them. He stares at the bite mark still visible on her hand, agreeing to follow them as the female titan continues to kill those who try and intercept it. It speeds up, its hand directly above Eren as they pass a tree, and all parties, horses notwithstanding, gape at the battlements around them. Erwin giving the order and hundreds of harpoons fire straight into the female titan, pulling taut, pinning it in place, its hands covering its nape. Levi's squad ride on, Eren's faith having paid off. Levi places Eld in charge, telling them to get up into the trees at a safe distance, while he turns back to deal with the captured female titan. Erwin congratulates Levi on leading it here, but Levi harshly reminds him of the cost, the rear guard, everyone who gave their lives today, delaying it just enough that it didn't catch up till the last moment. Erwin orders the fire of another round of restraints, using up the reserves, in order to make sure they have it properly pinned before anyone moves in to cut out whoever's inside the nape. The 104th around the perimeter hear the explosions within the forest, but Nanaba, one of the older scouts, informs Krista that they'll likely withdraw soon. Jean and Armin jump to a different tree, a titan having managed to climb up, Armin pointing out the scary implications that they have the capacity to learn. The two discuss and figure out that this mission was likely to capture the person inside the female titan. Levi's squad within the woods coming to the same conclusion, that if Erwin didn't trust them with the plan, then he must believe there to be a traitor within the scouts. Eld surmising that the only ones trusted would have been those who survived when Wall Maria first fell. Everyone discusses the ins and outs of the situation, the moral implications of having kept so many in the dark, and the loss of life that may not have occurred if he'd just told everyone. Armin reflects that only those who are able to change this world are those willing to risk everything, remembering Pixis and Ian, especially those who can cast aside their humanity. Levi and Mike, humanity's two strongest soldiers, jump down and slice through the female titan's hands. But as they do, the fingers are covered by a crystalline layer of hardened skin, so solid that their blades break on impact. Erwin orders a barrage of artillery upon the titan's wrists to sever the hands, hoping to uncover the nape that way. Levi taunts the captured titan, but in response it lets out a shrieking roar. But that's not all. Mike can smell approaching Titans from all sides. The Titans at the perimeter have heard the roar and are heading for this location. The perimeter guard and the 104th chase after the approaching Titans, trying to kill them before they reach their target. Sasha recognizing the scream from the forest as that of a cornered animal with nothing to lose. Blood flies everywhere as the scouts at the center try to keep the horde back from the female Titan, but they tear it apart. Erwin ordering a withdrawal as the female Titan's head is ripped off, ordering a retreat back to the Kalanith district. Erwin registers the steam, realizing it will hinder visibility for their smoke signals, but then thinks to the disappearance of the colossal Titan at Trost, and orders Levi to top up his gas and blades before heading back to his team. Speaking of whom, they head to their horses when they see the withdraw signal. Oro and Petra start bickering when Eld shows them both up in front of Eren, pointing out that the two both pissed themselves on their first mission. They have a friendly back and forth, chiding each other. Oro reminding Eld that he has the highest kill count of the team. Gunther pointing out that he wasn't one of the ones who wet himself. They spot a green signal flare and head towards it, sending up their own response. And a soldier with their hood up tosses aside their flare gun, drawing their blades and heading towards Levi's squad's signal. Hanji asks Erwin why he had him replenish his supplies. Erwin responds that while the female Titan was eaten, no one saw the person inside get eaten. The hooded soldier flies by Gunther, killing him with their swords. On the retreat, Armin and Jean hypothesized the reason the Colossal and Armored Titans stopped their assault on Trost. Was it because of Eren's transformation? Meaning that the traitors were likely soldiers who were there that day. The remaining 4 members of Levi's squad are cut off from their horses as a flash of lightning manifests the female Titan. Eren wants to fight, but Eld pushes him on forward, saying that they'll take it down. Eren trusts them, continuing on. Eld's distracting it as Petra and Oro fly by, slashing at its eyes, blinding it. The female Titan immediately covers its nape with both hands and backs against a tree. The 3 scouts bearing down upon the Titan, slicing through its muscles and sinews at the shoulders until the arms become too weak and fall to its sides. Eren glances back to see them swinging at it, doing the same to the neck to expose the nape. But Eren thinks back to what Levi said earlier, never knowing whether to trust himself or his team. This is just too unpredictable out here. He looks back once more. The female Titan opens its right eye at the last second and bites down on Eld, spitting his bisected body to the ground. Eren turns back, rushing to help his squad mates. Petra panics, realizing that it's selectively focused on healing one eye rather than both, and is stomped into the tree by the pursuing Titan. Oro is shocked, slicing at the nape, but his swords break on contact, shattering against the hardened skin of its nape. The female Titan jumps up and kicks him from the air, his body crashing into multiple trees. The female Titan lands on the ground, Eren arriving and bites down on his hand, a burst of lightning, and he appears with a roar. Mikasa turning back to find Eren and Levi heading towards the sound, searching for his squad. The 2 Titans begin to brawl, kicking, dodging, punching. Now it's Eren's turn to be on the offensive. Levi's face darkens as he spots Gunther's body, then Eld's, and Oro's, and he stops when he finds Petra's broken against the tree. Eren manages to get on top of his opponent, swinging for her head so hard that he breaks both of his hands into a steaming mess. The female Titan, however, rolls its head to dodge the punches. Eren blaming himself and his inaction for his squad's deaths as his Titan roars in its opponent's face. But the female Titan has stalled long enough for its other eye to regenerate, throwing Eren off and getting to his feet, dodging a flurry of his punches, hardening a fist and socking his jaw clean off. Eren sends her flying with another punch, but the female Titan does something the audience doesn't get to see. Eren freezing up, before being cut off as she kicks swiftly through the tree, his face, his arm, Eren's headless Titan collapsing. The female Titan opens its mouth wide, tearing at the flesh around its mouth to open wider, ripping his unconscious body free and holding him in its mouth. Lisa arrives just in time to see her rip Eren free, and in rage starts slicing at the female Titan's body as it tries to run away. Lisa severs muscles at the back of the knee, causing it to crash to the ground. It hardens its hand on its nape, Levi arriving just in time as it starts to get up again. As the 2 scouts pursue the female Titan, Levi asks if Eren's being killed. Mikasa insisting he's alive, just being carried in the mouth. Levi pulls rank and puts the focus on retrieving Eren, not killing the Titan. Mikasa will distract while he attacks. The Titan throws a punch for Levi, who shreds his way up its arm, stabbing 2 swords into its eyes, before drawing new blades and tearing its way across its body. The female Titan slumps against its tree, the body already heavily damaged, covering its nape. But Levi swiftly disables its arms, Mikasa moving in to go for the nape. Levi barks at her to stop as it moves to swat her out of the sky, Levi pushing Mikasa aside, but twisting his ankle in the process. Gritting his teeth, he slices the Titan's jaws open, revealing and retrieving Eren. The 2 escape the immobilized but regenerating female Titan. Levi glances back to see tears rolling down its face. We see a heartbreaking montage of the families of the Levi squad members within the walls, looking forward to their return. Eld's family looking wistfully out the window, Oro's parents and many siblings preparing an extra plate for dinner, Gunther's elderly family looking forward to seeing him again. These sweet scenes are swiftly undercut as the scouts load their dead onto the wagons, Levi cutting the wings of freedom from Petra's jacket to remember her by. As they head home, 2 Titans approach from the rear, chasing down 2 soldiers who went back to try and retrieve their friend's corpse. Levi heads back to intercept while Erwin leads the troops at full speed. In order to keep the Titans busy, the soldiers begin dumping their comrades' bodies off the wagons. Levi watching as Petra's corpse hits the ground at speed. The Titans slow down enough for the scouts to get away. Detard, the scout responsible for leading the Titans down upon them, stands stunned on the way back. But Levi approaches him and hands him the wings of freedom from Petra's jacket, lying and telling him they belong to the friend Detard had tried to recover, bringing the scout to tears. Aaron wakes up from a dream of episode 1, the scouts returning in shambles, but now finds himself a part of it. The crowd yell at Erwin for leading so many to their deaths, and from the crowd comes Petra's father, a little embarrassed as he wants to talk to Levi, thanking him for protecting her, and telling him that she's fallen in love with him as he blushes, talking about marriage, Levi marching on, his face stony and cold. We open on Annie waking up within the Stroh's district of Walsina from a dream of her childhood. We see the people of the city discussing the arrival of the scouts later today, passing through to the capital. We meet some of Annie's fellow soldiers, H. Reese, Boris Fjellner, and Marlo Furrendenberg. They are assigned to escort the scouts through the city that day, and we see just how corrupt the MPs are, the higher-ups drinking and gambling, soldiers selling off equipment to the black market, even trying to bribe Marlo to keep him quiet. We see Niall, head of the military police, leading the scouts convoy through the city. Annie stands alongside, but is called into a dark alley by Armin. They're trying to sneak Aaron out of the city as he's being taken to his execution after the failure of the mission, and ask for Annie's help. Armin appeals to her, saying that he always thought of her as a fundamentally good person. She lowers her gun and agrees to help, slipping on a ring. Miksa and Aaron join them as they head through a quiet street, and we see that they've placed Jean in a wig as a substitute Aaron for the convoy. The 4 reach a staircase to the underground city, intending to use the tunnel as a way to sneak back to the gate and get Aaron out. But Annie refuses, scared of cramp and dark spaces. The tension continues to build as Annie points out this area has been quiet for a while now, the camera revealing several scouts hiding on rooftops. Annie is on edge, Armin gripping a signal flare, and he asks why she presented Marco's ODM gear, back when they were being inspected under suspicion of killing Sonny and Bean. But Aaron can't believe it and just asks her to come down with them. Miksa draws her blades as Annie laughs, relieved not to have to hide from anyone anymore. She moves to bite her hand and Armin fires an acoustic round. Several disguised scouts charge in to restrain her. She's gagged, but before she can be knocked out, she flicks her ring, revealing a spike on the surface, slicing her finger open, and with a flash, they're all sent flying as the female Titan manifests. We cut to Erwin, Armin, Jean, and Miksa joining Aaron and Levi as they discuss their plan. They run through everything they know, and reasons they believe Annie to be the female Titan. They plan to use Jean as a substitute Aaron, while Armin, Miksa, and the real Aaron try to lead Annie to the underground district. So if she transforms, she'd have nowhere to go and they can catch her. However, this didn't work. Back in the present, she transformed to the surface, the trio are retreating through the tunnels. They prepare for plan B, combat. He bites at his hand but doesn't transform, still torn up about fighting Annie. But he remembers his earlier fight against the female Titan. He was beaten when he was stunned to see the female Titan take up the same stance Annie had used on him during their training. Before he can do anything, Annie stomps through the ground on top of Aaron. Miksa takes to vertical maneuvering to fight Annie while Armin tries to free him from the rubble. At the convoy, Niall sends Marlo, Hitch, and Boris to investigate the explosion while Erwin jumps into action, assuming command as he sends Jean to help the other soldiers and equips ODM gear, but Niall and the MPs raise arm against him for this blatant treason. Jean runs through the crowds of fleeing citizens and reflects on his choice to join the scouts rather than the MPs, who all stand around watching from a distance. He arrives to help Armin, trying to free and wake up Aaron, bringing up Marco. But the fight with the female Titan sends more rubble falling upon Aaron. As a result, the duo turn their attention to taking out Annie first. They lead her down a street to Hanji, Mulbit, and Waiting, who fire more harpoons in order to catch her. But before they can cut Annie out of the nape, she breaks free. Pinned and impaled, Aaron remembers the friends he's lost along the way, but his thoughts turn to his mother's death, and he's overcome with rage. His injuries from being impaled by the rubble, combined with the hateful goal of taking down the Titans, brings forth a crash of lightning as Aaron transforms, running at Annie with all the force to shatter nearby windows, socking her across the jaw. Within the court of the Church of the Walls, Pastor Nick preaches to the believers, stood there in 3 concentric rings. When Annie comes crashing through the roof, killing his believers, Nick watches in horror at the 2 Titans, these aberrations within Walsina. He yells for them to stay away from the walls as Annie makes a break towards it. The two titans fight, trading blows, throwing each other through the city. The scouts trying to help, the MPs stunned in confusion. Erwin accepts responsibility for the damages and loss of life. Niall threatens to execute him right here for these actions. Erwin points out the challenge that would result in that, as Niall would then need to assume command of the operation, taking him aback. He lowers his gun, instead cuffing Erwin, leaving his fate for the court to decide. After they work together to complete this mission, of course. Niall deploys the MPs to evacuate the citizens. Annie knocks Aaron to the ground, bashing in his skull, and takes the opportunity to run for the wall. But Aaron's Titan swiftly gets up, running at her like a savage animal, glowing with embers as he radiates heat, healing much faster than normal. He pins her to the ground and squeezes her head, popping it and sending blood and her eyes flying. And he lets out another scream and kicks him off, hardening her fingers to scale the wall in order to escape. But Mikasa slices them off before she can reach the top, leaving the female Titan to fall to the waiting Eren. Annie flashes back to her father apologizing and promising to always be by her side as Eren tears the female Titan limb from limb, ripping the head off and biting out the nape, revealing Annie. But Eren hesitates, seeing her crying. Suddenly there's a brilliant flash of blue light as the two titans seem to melt together and Annie is covered in a casing of hardened titan skin. Eren is cut free from the titan's nape and the two bodies begin to evaporate. In the aftermath, Erwin presents the situation to the council. Annie, encased in hardened titan skin, is secured in a dungeon under the surface. Eren is recuperating while the others involved are debriefed. Armin posits again that the only way to make change in this world is to abandon your humanity. John asking if it's worth it defeating the titans by creating a greater monster, and if that can really be called a victory for humanity. Erwin explains that compared to before the Battle of Trust, the knowledge of Titan shifters and the capture of one of the enemy is a huge step forward, and now is the time to root out the other enemies and begin their attack on the Titans. We see a montage of everyone, Erwin free, Annie trapped, the 104th who weren't present somewhere out in Wall Rose, Eren resting the key around his neck, and the credits for Season 1 roll. But afterward, we see the wall where Annie tried to climb, and a chunk crumbles away, revealing the face of a skinless Titan. And with that, that's episodes 14 to 25 covered. If you have not seen the rest of the anime, this is your opportunity to leave. Spoiler warning going forward. Click to this time to avoid spoilers. Okay, here we go. Okay then. Well, that's us. The end of Season 1 Part 2. The end of Season 1. Fully covered now. Next week we'll be on Season 2. Yeah, sorry, this week. Basically, again, I have read the Colossal Editions, Volume 1 and 2. I have read the No Regrets manga, and the Garrison Girl novel. I do not know anything to come in the manga beyond those, so I have no clue what's coming in Season 4. That said, onto my inane ramblings, observations, and guesses that might pan out to mean something, but probably won't. I found it interesting in episode 14 seeing Erwin and Pixis talking to each other side by side, and I really noticed this time around the age difference between these two commanders. Pixis, head of the garrison, having fought on the walls, defending the walls, is up there in age, bald, white mustache. Erwin, the younger man, in command of the scouts. The scouts sort of rotate through members a lot faster than the garrison does. It's great seeing Pastor Nick. Again, it's one of those things you sort of forget that he's in episode 1 really early on, praising the walls, and then in this sort of chunk of episodes we see him leading a church with a bunch of followers, and he's got a position where people will at least acknowledge his presence in the court. As Eren gets angry and starts yelling, he emits a vapor of steam around himself, so that's a bit interesting. If he was healing up, if he was on the verge of transforming or something there. And I'm going to take a moment to quickly address the outro for this season. The Great Escape is cool. I love the sort of more static shots, the camera moving through everyone, all the characters doing their own thing, and then sort of the end animation is really smooth and sort of thicker ink shadows and everything is really nice. But it ends with a shot of the stone brick wall and everything with two opposing human forces with two different flags. This one does look potentially similar. It is obscured, it is eroded, But I could see that potentially being the Eldian flag or something, the Eldian armbands that they wear in the Libero internment zone of Marley, with a sort of star. I could see a star, if you squint at it, maybe? Which would mean this other one is potentially the Marleyan flag. Don't know, might be spitting nonsense. Aaron again pondering how he knows, the biting down on his hand, how he knows that self-harm is what triggers the transformation. Because, as discussed in the last video, link on screen, we have Grisha telling him when he's giving him the injection, oh, they will show you the previous, potentially future, Attack Titan holders. He's getting the information from them via the coordinate, which is a whole thing. Season 4 will get into that. I hope it better. When Levi's squad is sitting in the dining room, we hear footsteps and then a thud on the door. And then they open the door and Hanji's rubbing their head. They ran face first into that door. Hanji mentions that prior to Sonny and Bean they'd caught 5 other Titans, which is cool. So since the Ilsa's Notebook OVA to now, they captured 5 Titans in that time span. That's cool after Erwin approved Hanji's idea of trying to capture Titans. Tying in again with that OVA, Hanji mentions that they have the organs and everything necessary to talk. They just can't or don't because they've read Ilsa's Notebook describing an encounter with a Titan that did talk, that did verbally communicate. So Hanji would have read that and then investigated that. Hanji names Sonny and Bean after Sonny Bean, a real-life person in our world. So the events of Attack on Titan take place some time after the events of the 16th century with Sonny Bean and his clan. Hanji mentions that potentially how they appear to us is not like what they truly are, referring to the Titans, that perhaps how they perceive them, how they understand them, it could just be referring to how they understand them, but there is still that question of why does biting your hand, where does all this extra matter come from? It could just be transmuted from the surrounding air or something. I don't know, but how they appear to us isn't nothing like what they really are. That could be something. Again, the coordinate is the reveal of that, and the passing down of information and the receiving of information through time has thrown a huge spanner in the mechanics of this world. So I'm fully on board with Attack on Titan going full Evangelion, Code Geass, collective unconscious craziness at the end. I love that. Armin picks up that Annie seems apprehensive about them all joining the Scouts because of the current plan. She doesn't want to have to fight them, risk killing them potentially. She still sort of sees them as friends to a certain degree. The Devil Bloods and everything. We haven't had much of Annie talking about her perspective on the Marleyan Eldian separation and everything. So she might be a bit more lenient on the whole situation than, say, Zeke, Reiner, and Bertolt were. When Erwin is trying to get people to join the Scouts, and he mentions the basement and that there may be some secret to the Titans there, everyone's shocked, but we do specifically see, again, Annie, Reiner, and Bertolt all sort of freak out a little hearing this information. That's thrown a big spanner in their plans. As the rest of the 104th all walk away to join different battalions, we see Ymir is watching Krista, because she's going to stick with her. And similarly, Bertolt is looking over his shoulder as Annie walks off to join the military police. We get our first Shinzo Sasageo! And interestingly, of what look to be the 141 Southern 104th cadets remaining, one of them joins the military police. Annie's the only one of the top 10 who is alive at this point and doesn't join the Scouts. 18 join the Scouts, meaning that 122 go to join the garrison. In the classroom, as Ness is teaching about Erwin's long-range scouting formation, we see 24 new Scout members joining, 18 of which were from the southern region. So the remaining 3/4 of the human civilization, that entire 3/4, only 6 people joined the Scouts. I do love the whole situation of Petra falling for Levi, but Oro is trying to impress Petra by acting like Levi, so we see that a few times throughout it. She picks up on how he talks. He's been talking or doing impressions of Levi. But even just in this little scene, it's a little thing. You have Gunther Eld, Petra Eld teaching Aaron around a map. Levi off to the side watching the horses, and Oro also standing watching the horses. We get our first good Erwin Susume as they charge out. Sasha being chased by a Titan and then her squad mates help her get away by leading it so it runs headfirst into a tree, and they say, oh, it's knocked out. So Titans can be knocked out. Interesting. Once I heard that, that sort of helped explain a few things throughout the rest of this part, such as Annie's head being knocked off, and then the body stops moving, and despite the shifter being fine in the nape, the rest of the body needs to form the head and the brain, seemingly, to be able to continue functioning, and she kicks off Aaron's head, and he's done. And he comes bite out the nape. So seemingly, just pure Titans can still be knocked out, can still have brain damage done. After the female Titan has taken out everyone and gotten as far as Armin, and then Reiner comes up. Yes, because Reiner was behind him in formation, but also was Reiner perhaps following behind the female Titan a little, so make sure there's no witnesses or something. And then when Jean joins them and they find out that each of their maps told them that Eren was in a different place, Reiner said that Eren would be with the right wing, which is the first place that Annie attacks, because Reiner passed that information on to her. I do love the interactions of just these three as a trio. It's fun, and I wish we got more of them. We get a lot more of Armin and Jean together, but I like the dynamic Reiner adds to the sort of three together. Furthermore, Armin distracts the female Titan, referring to Eren as that suicidal maniac, which was his nickname amongst the 104th Cadets. So based on that reaction, he's gotten the information already that it's one of the 104th Cadets. Oh, I love... He gets that information then, and sort of spends the rest of the expedition putting it together with other things, coming to his conclusion that it's Annie. As Annie is paused, thinking, what the heck's going on? Wait, I killed Eren, what? Reiner comes up and lowers his hood to reveal, this is me, let me get close, I have something to tell you, and then they do the old charade of going for him, selecting the hand and leaving the message in the hand and everything. Reiner, Jean, and Armin are left stranded, only one horse, and Armin's injured. Reiner perhaps caught onto the suicidal maniac comment from Armin as well, and to prevent him figuring too much out, he's like, oh yeah, you're still in shock, right? You're still a bit discombobulated with everything that happened with the head trauma. And then he also further suggests, he's the one who brings up, we're going to need to leave someone behind if no horse arrives. He's trying to get rid of Armin here, trying to stop Armin from putting too much together. And Armin then offers to stay, so long as Reiner delivers a message to Erwin, passing on what Armin has started to figure out. But if that did play out, if Krista Historia didn't arrive, he would have given that information to Reiner, and Reiner wouldn't have passed it on, most likely. And if Jean had overheard, he would have probably had to kill Jean. It's a great thing that Krista saw that smoke signal. Levi's saying, oh, he knows Eren's type. No matter what cage he's in, no one can ever tame him. The attack type. Levi's suggestion of how to cut Eren out should he go berserk, so cutting around him in the nape, severing his arms and legs. That's what Reiner ends up doing in Season 2, biting through the nape as they try to escape and cuts off his arms and legs for not accounting for them. Something I didn't notice that's really cool upon the rewatch. Nanaba is introduced this season. I remember starting Season 2 thinking that she was an entirely new character introduced at the start of that arc. And we find out later as Levi's squad is talking about the scouts that probably were trusted were those that survived the fall of Maria. We see Hanji, Erwin, Mike, Levi, and Nanaba. Nanaba has been in the scouts for a good while. We get a bit of backstory on that. Armin and Jean realize that it's kind of scary that this Titan has learned to climb, that some Titans are capable of learning. Interesting. A certain aspect of its humanity leaking through, like the Talking Titan, perhaps. So much of the thing I brought up last time about the Colossal seeming to know when someone is coming in for the nape. Annie had her hands behind her head, was pinned. Might have just heard the ODM gear whirring or something. But knew. Okay, that's Levi and Mike jumping down, and harden my hands. Without being able to see it. Again, I give Annie a little bit more leeway here with perhaps being able to hear them. But with Bertolt and being in the Colossal and everything, I don't know. Do Titan shifters have some sort of extra sensory ability to see what's going on behind them at the nape? The female Titans roar, scream, summoning all these Titans. I don't think that's coordinate related. So Eren is able to control and command Titans because he has the coordinates. He is the coordinates. The Beast Titan, Zeke, is somehow able to do it. I assume that was just something innate to its power set, its abilities. But Annie's scream here summoning them, is that Annie using an ability to command the Titans, or is it just a scream that draws them in and it's not any sort of command? Don't know. Erwin points out that this mission failed because they didn't anticipate hardened skin, the use of the steam, something that comes up in Season 3, Part 2, when Armin is like, yeah, stop. They've always beat us because we don't know enough. They're always a few steps ahead, so we need to think and be more wary and bear in mind that they know more than we do, and thus they end up checking the walls and finding Reiner. The female Titan is able to focus regeneration on one point. I assume that's the thing that all Titan shifters can do, but this one is introduced. The death of Levi's squad, that took me completely by surprise first time I watched. Again, Eren recognizing Annie's stance, but we don't see that until later for the reveal. Can you imagine if Annie had properly eaten Eren here, had bitten through him and killed him? Not that they would have known it at the time, but Annie would have been in possession of 3 of the 9 Titans there. Annie would have had the female, the attack, and the founding. Whew. I do think there has to be a reason that she doesn't do that, which makes me wonder. We know there's the 13 years time limit on Titan shifters. We don't know if there's any consequence to being in possession of multiple. How they're passed down, aside from how it went from Ymir to the 9. From the 9, you got 9 Titans, and then someone new comes and eats one of them, they all get eaten and it passes down. If one of the 9 dies before they're eaten and passed on, the Titan manifests elsewhere in a completely different Eldian. A new Eldian born, I assume, rather than just something has the power.
You won't be killed like they were. See, if you die, you'll just be reborn, and the Fire Nation will have to begin its search for the Avatar all over again. Though I'll keep you alive.
So the only drawback I can currently see to having Annie just eat Eren there is that then Marley would lose. They'd have those 3 until Annie died. Because then they could have someone else eat Annie, but then that person would still have the 3, and someone eat them and they'd still have the 3, and someone would eat them and still have the 3. Whereas if Annie ate them and then had the 3, and then died, presumably then they'd split up into 3 completely different people. The big risk on Marley's front is if one of the Titans was then to manifest in someone inside the walls, they'd be without one of the Titans. And then there's the thing of Eren's nose bleeding. That's the only physical drawback we see to Titan shifters, and he is the only one in possession of multiple. So that could be a thing. Maybe he's dying faster than the others. Maybe the 13-year thing compounds, and Eren's going to live for less than 13 years because he has 2. There's just too much we don't know. We get an Ackerman team up, but of course at this point we don't yet know Levi is an Ackerman. The female Titan, Annie, is crying as they leave. For 1, Titans have tear ducts. And for 2, why is she crying? She said earlier to Armin she was doing this to live, to survive. She doesn't want to die, she's doing this for Marley, so she won't be killed. So, should her mission fail, similar to what Zeke said to Reiner, if you fail again, your armor will be given to another warrior. Bertolt, Reiner, and Annie fail, they're going to be brought back and eaten. They'll send someone else to try instead. So Annie wants to succeed, because otherwise they're going to die. That is the thing. They are child soldiers under not only threat of death, under threat of being eaten alive. It's sad seeing the families of Levi's squad. It's sad seeing Levi watch as Petra's body is dumped, and that's the last one. It's the 3rd body that is enough to lure the Titans away to stay back. Had those guys just dropped a different body instead of Petra, but no, it was Petra. That's just how it goes. And then Levi giving Detard Petra's wings of freedom, being like, oh, this was your mate's one, this was Ian's. It's proof that they once lived. And then later with Petra's dad as well. Oh, this episode is quite the gut punch at the end. Okay, then, the flashbacks with Annie's dad. I'd expect no less from my daughter. I go way more in depth than all of the Annie backstory stuff in this video, which is going to be on screen right now, in whichever corner that goes in. I really need to figure out which one this does it in, because my camera flips the image and stuff. There's a lot to go into there. I'll break it down in a different video. Again, click the link if you want to check that out. We get introduced to Hitch, Marlowe, and Boris. Again, Boris doesn't get much attention. We see him a little bit more in the Lost Girls OVA I just mentioned. Hitch and Marlowe are great. I love that we get more with Marlowe and Hitch in Season 3. That's brilliant. I like that we find out Annie respects Marlowe and Eren for being brave enough to go out and speak their mind and be honest and truthful to themselves. Well, She's sort of acting out of fear, seemingly, and lying about everything. It's interesting. Again, the things I'm most looking forward to in Season 4 is going to be seeing more of Annie. All the coordinate stuff, the Marlowe stuff, all the craziness. But from what plot threads are left within the walls, it's Annie all the way. Annie says here that their motivation is just wanting to be seen as a person. As by Marley, they're seeing this a weapon, a tool, by people seeing the female Titan as this monster, as this creature, as this enemy. Just wants to be seen as a person, just wants to live. When Annie agrees with Armin to help out, we see more of that again in the Lost Girls OVA, but that's her suspicious. It's like something's up here already, that the moment this is presented is prepared to have to transform using it. The Underground City, again, it's mentioned here. We see it then at the end of Season 2, I think. Unless, of course, you checked out No Regrets, the OVAs or the manga. But Annie says before trying to transform and everyone running in, that they're a failed warrior. Possibly having failed the mission earlier, or on a fundamental level, that lots of backstory stuff with Annie. But identifying herself as a failed warrior. Interesting. I do see the possibility that Annie is going to be revealed to be of royal blood, purely because blonde with blue eyes. Dino is blonde, Zeke's blonde, the Rod's family all had blue eyes, Historia was blue eyes and blonde. I could see that being a thing if that plays into how Eren can't use the coordinate unless he's in contact with someone with royal blood. The coordinate can't be used properly unless it's someone with the royal blood, but then they get overtaken by the power of the king, so we're sort of a happy medium now if Annie was to team up and his royal family and work together. I'm anticipating that reveal. Eren, the Attack Titans Rage Berserker mode, blackened skin, glowing with the embers, glowing blue eyes. Again, that's not in the manga. In the manga, the Attack Titan just stays the same. So if that's something Isayama suggested to the team to add that's going to tie in later in the manga and the story in Season 4, maybe. More likely, I think it's just an anime-only thing that's never going to be brought up again. Armin asking, are they merging as the two titans, the attack and female, sort of looks like the flesh is melting and sort of bubbling up together? Interesting. That's still to be explained. What triggers that? What causes that? Eren sees Annie crying in the nape and hesitates. Then there's the light of Annie making the chrysalis and the two sort of melt together in this weird way. That's still to be addressed. Is that an ability specific to the female Titan? What's going on? This mission, Erwin only told those he thought he could trust, hence why the military police weren't informed, hence why the rest of the Scouting Legion's 104th recruits are out elsewhere, not involved in this mission, and disarmed and everything, which we get into in Season 2. The Titans in the walls. So yeah, I think it's a nice little detail. The warriors know that the walls are made of Titans. That's established. We find that out in Season 3, Part 2, when we find out everything in the journals from the basement. Annie, in her desperation, runs to the wall, hardens the fingers, and climbs up it. Yeah? Yeah. Zeke, the Beast Titan, in Season 2, when he scales over the wall, he climbs up the sort of pillar, the support structure bit, the sort of sticking out rut bit of the wall. I wonder if that's because being a bit smarter and perhaps not being in as much of a rush as Annie was, he's deliberately climbing up that part of the wall because there isn't a Titan at that part, perhaps? Perhaps the Titans are sort of the gaps between the sort of straight up pillars. Perhaps it's just because it sort of sticks out, there's more of the hardened skin, the wall itself, to dig your fingers into before you'd risk revealing a Titan. I don't know, it's just potentially quite that's my headcanon, that the Titans aren't at those parts and Zeke was deliberately climbing on that as not to reveal the secret to those within the walls. Again, this wall Titan's face, it's skinless, so the drawings and depictions in the flashback episodes in Season 3, Part 2 are not to be taken literally. The wall Titans were not bearded, godlike figures in robes and everything. It's this faceless, skinless Titan monster. That's about all I have to say on Season 1, Part 2. So yeah, if you are watching along the series with me. That is season 1 finished. We are caught up, we've covered that, we're ready to move on. So next week, we're on to season 2, just 12 episodes to watch for this video next weekend. And just as we close out, I do again want to bring up Unus Annus ended this morning for me. I'm in the UK, so it ended at 8 o'clock. The channel will be missed. I'm glad Mark and Ethan are still uploading on their regular channels. But it was a big part of my life this past year. Till next time, I have been Jack of all trades. Memento Mori.
Unus Annus.
See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.